Hello, my friends. How you doing today? We are in a spiritual battle. Now, this video is going to be more of a local video. What I'd like to do is give a shout out to a lady by the name of Julia Malada. And the reason why I want to give a shout out to her is because she stood up and said that parents should be involved in knowing whether their children are choosing to transition in the public school system. Now, Julia Malata is a transgender individual, and she presented her opinion that she thought parents should be consulted to the local school board here. Now, I know this could be happening in many other areas in the world, but the local school board here in Waterloo Region District School Board, is headed by an individual who is a Luciferian Satanist by his actions. I don't know if that is what he actually ascribes to for his personal religious beliefs, but those are the values that are being promoted. They want to take the children and, as the Nicolaitans did, sacrifice those children to their ideology. And it's also the values that were being promoted at the time of Sodom and Gomorrah when they said, "We want your children." So the head of the Waterloo Region District School Board is a fellow by the name of Scott Pietkowski, and he wants to keep that transition secret from parents, and he wants that to be part of the school board policy so that they can have access to the children and promote the transition and get that accomplished. Now, this is something that is being promoted at a very high level globally. And the reason for that is many reasons. It's part of the Luciferian agenda. The prince of the power of this world is promoting that doctrine, that ideology. And it also is promoting depopulation of the earth and also the decline of Western society. So there are many reasons that this type of agenda wants to be promoted and probably already has been successfully promoted, because now that the next generation is rising up, you have children 10, 11, 12, 13 years old, and they're speaking out. They're becoming spokespeople for this agenda. And they're saying, we want everyone to be trained in this agenda so that the children that are being brought up in a public school system will be indoctrinated into the transition process and all the medical profits that are generated from that through the hormone blockers and the medical procedures and on and on and on and so on and so forth. And of course, that has the net effect of creating a sterile population so that they cannot reproduce, the decay of Western society as we know it, and the rise of authoritarian totalitarianism and global control, right? Global control for the beast, the false prophet, and so on and so forth, as we already know from Revelation 13. I only know of one person in Canada out of a population of roughly 36 million people. I'm not sure, somewhere between 33 and 40 million people in Canada now. There's one person that's standing up for the rights of children. He goes by the name of Billboard Chris, and of course he gets arrested and ridiculed and things like that. And so what the board tried to do is cancel this Julia Malata, and they even had the local press create a false press story on her, which was full of defamation and lies. And she even had to go to the trouble of getting them to change that 4 times and include an apology for what they had written about her. So you can imagine the backlash that occurs when somebody wants to speak up and say, I think parents should be involved when a child is transitioning to whatever involvement. Is a whole other matter. That's between the parents and the school board and so on and so forth. Now, of course, the real one solution, of course, is not to put your children in a public school system. That's obvious. But for a lot of people, they feel like they have no choice. They're afraid of the Catholic school system because they're not Catholic, or they don't understand what Catholicism is, which is really no different curriculum, except the kids add on one class of religious studies, perhaps. Um, the rest of the curriculum is the same. But for a lot of people, they say, oh, I can't send my kid to Catholic school. We're not Catholic, and so on and so forth. And so they're forced to use the public school system either because they're working, they need to have that done by professionals, they don't have the time or resources or finances to raise the children themselves in a setting that allows the child to learn all these things, homeschooling, so on and so forth. But I think it goes even beyond that. It goes from the time that the child is born in the hospital. At that time, the hospital is able to poke and prod the child in half a dozen different ways, and you have no idea what is being administered to a child when they are born. And if I had known that, I would have prevented my own children from being born in Scarborough General Hospital in Toronto. That being said, it starts from the womb. We have to try and protect children and try and have a midwife. We try and have to homeschool. But outside of that, the people that are in control of the local school boards, they are not voted in. I mean, they are voted in from the public perspective, but they are appointed by globalist leaders that have a Luciferian agenda. They want to promote their views, their values, and they're being extremely successful at it because they only need a few people in each city to control the education of the next generation. So you only need a few people in each city. They appoint who's going to be in charge of the school board, who's going to be in charge of the libraries, very important. And of course, the politicians are all chosen by globalist forces. We know that. And so we are in it. The only solution for this is through prayer. We have to pray that God's church will prevail, that his people will prevail. There is no church that is standing up for the rights of children. The organized, what you would call the organized Christian church in today, things like the Evangelical Fellowship of Canada or the whatever large denominations, take your pick, they are all instruments of the state. They have all laid down and said, whatever the state tells us to do, we will do it. And they've proven that over the last few years. So the local church is going to be of absolutely no help in protecting the existence of Western society. Western society has already fallen, essentially. Now, the hope is that there will be pockets of places where you can go and be free. You can go and live with Mennonites is one option. You can find there may be some individual states that are able to maintain some independence. There may be some pockets of areas in Western Canada, Alberta, that may be able to maintain some independence, but it's highly unlikely. It'll probably have to be a relocation to a place that is willing to stand up for righteousness. A place like El Salvador, for example, might be one of the few places in the world where people will be able to have sanctuary. So it is pretty bleak, but through the power of prayer, we can ask for people to rise up. People like Billboard Chris, people like Julia Malada. I'll put a link to her Twitter social media below this video, so if you want to follow her, you can. And as far as social media, the only social media I'm on is Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook. If you see me anywhere else, it's not me. I do have a Telegram account. I don't use it. But I'm not on WhatsApp or any of these other things. So in case you happen to see somebody that says they're me and it's not coming from, if you need to reach me, my email is available through my YouTube account. Simple. Or you can reach me on Twitter. Anyway, I thought I'd share that with you because it's very important. We are in a spiritual battle. We have to pray that somehow the Spirit of God is able to prevail. And that can only happen if the people in power become converted to an understanding that God is sovereign, the God of Israel, the God of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, that he is the one that we should be trying to please and not trying to please the globalist Luciferian forces that want to destroy the population and insert their ideology. So if you do get a chance and are able to listen to Julia Malada's arguments, She's very well spoken, and she stands for a lot of people. I'm sure there's a ton of people that share her views that are in the transgender queer community, but they can't speak out, because if they were to speak out and say, yeah, it's probably a good idea to get parents' opinion on transitioning, they would immediately be canceled and labeled as transphobic, right? They're labeled as transphobic, they're labeled as racist, they're labeled as promoting hate speech, and on and on and on. They use all those buzzwords to cancel anybody that goes against their Luciferian agenda. And so they are very effective in that, and they have infiltrated pretty much every school board. Ottawa school board is the same. There's a Satanist woman there, not by her attendance in a Satanist church, but by her attitudes and actions. That is Nilly Kaplan Mirth, whatever her name is. She is absolutely insane, and her has given herself over to ideology of demonic possession to a large extent. Same as Scott Pietkowski. And so through their actions, again, I don't know, they may be Catholic or Protestant, or I don't know what their religion is, but by their actions, this is how they're uh, uh, portraying themselves, which is obvious to the public, but the public is unwilling to speak out and say anything about it because of the power of censorship that they have wielded and are continuing to wield. Anybody that speaks out gets quickly shut down and defamed, and on and on and on. So there you go. There you have it. But I thought I'd bring that to your attention. I hope if you're a local person watching this, you're able to pray that we can escape for the sake of the next generation, because I'm not going to be I'm only going to be here for a very short time, but we are responsible to pray for the next generation, that they would have a chance, somehow a chance, to escape from this insidious deception that is being fulfilled right before our very eyes, and nobody is able to stand up. And we can't just say, oh, we'll just vote. See, the vast majority of the population just says, well, I'm busy working, and I don't have time to do that, and I go to church on Sunday and I do my thing, and that's not going to help anything. It has to take some serious prayer, a consistent prayer for the leadership of the country, that God would rise up people with Christian values, that they would rise up theists like Bukele, for example, and fight against unrighteousness at a leadership level. Otherwise, we're all doomed. So I hope that there's people out there that are willing to pray, and that's all I have to say about this, because I don't want to make any commentary on that whole transition agenda, because then I would be a target for cancellation as well, and they would get all my videos removed from YouTube and so on and so forth. So I'm not going to comment on the actual area. I'm just going to tell you that people that have an opinion that parents should be involved are being immediately shut down. And I wanted to share with you this opinion from Julia Malada that says, I think parents should be involved. And I think that's at the very, very least, a reasonable viewpoint to have, that parents should be involved in how their children are being treated medically. I don't see why not. But again, people like Scott Pietkowski say, no, if you say that, you are transphobic, you're racist, you are inciting hatred, you're inciting violence, and we're going to take your children away from you, which is the end goal anyway. They want to take the children away from the parents so that they can have their way with them in terms of their ideology and their indoctrination and their global viewpoint about the whole, research Moloch and so on and so forth. You know where that leads to, of course. Anyway, I hope that helps, and God bless you. Thank you for watching. I love you very much. This is a very serious matter. I realize that, so this is probably the only commentary I'll make on this topic, and hopefully I can move on to more happy things. But it is important. We can focus on happy things like being happy and enjoying life and getting fresh air and music, but also sometimes we have to be aware that we are in a spiritual battle that is ongoing, and never forget that we fulfill our obligation to pray first, seek God's kingdom first, and then all these other things shall be added unto us so that we can live a life in happiness and dignity. God bless you. Thank you for watching. We'll talk to you again real soon, okay? Bye-bye.